Hello, welcome to Chasing Green Arrows. Hope you all had a good weekend. As you can see, no Gianni this week, so we've had to replace him with some FPL royalty. FPL Salah in the house. Abdul, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good, Dean. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good to have you on. Don't think we've had you on this season. I mean, it's been a weird one so far. There's no doubt about it. But, well, how's your season been so far? Let's just start it there.
I mean, I think I've had an okay start. I mean, I'm at 1.8 million, which when I look around, like kind of, similar managers on Twitter, they're kind of rant about that. There's very few managers right now that are like, above like the 100k mark. So I think it's okay. I think this is probably my first good week of the season, actually. And I only got like a small green, but yeah, plenty of time to go. Plenty of time to go, Dean.
There is plenty of time to go. Our regular chasers are jumping into the chat now. Remember to give us a like when you do tune in. I'm sure you've all seen Gianni's score from the weekend. We will address that later on. I'll be honest, I'm quite glad he's not here to gloat about that. He got 112 points. 112 points. Every decision he made, bar Nicholas Jackson, has paid off for him. But yeah, we'll address him when we come to Pimp My Team later on and looking at our lineups. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump straight into my notebook because I've got loads to discuss this week about individuals. So let's go straight into looking at some individual performances. Right, I am going to start with Chelsea, to be honest with you. A terrible season for them so far. And Nicholas Jackson is a player, as I say, Gianni continues to persist with this guy. Stubbornness, silliness, I don't know what it is. His score could have even been better if he hadn't continued to go with this guy. I've written him off, Abdul, since pre-season. I said, he will not score enough goals for Chelsea. He's a good forward. He is not a 20-goal marksman. And at the moment, he's not even a 2-goal marksman. Like he looks like a bit of a dud. And he's a good footballer.
Marksman.
Yeah. He's a good footballer. I'm not saying that he's not, but I think we can all see now he is not a reliable FPL asset. And I can't believe that beyond this week, and especially now that everyone's got the excuse to get rid of him with the suspension, which is remarkable considering he totted up 5 yellow cards already. He's going to be like a mass exodus, isn't there, here of Nicholas Jackson?
Yeah, huge. I mean, like, there's no reason to keep him now. I mean, I think that's just going to increase the Morris sales as well. I think a lot of people go Morris this week. But yeah, as you said, it's. I was saying to this before the stream, I just can't quite believe that he's managed to pick up 5 yellow cards in his first 6 league games as well. For a club like Chelsea, I mean, that kind of stuff, like, it's unforgivable, really. Not even from an FPL point of view, like from a real football point of view, you got to think the manager's going to probably do something there. That's just But even before the match, you saw Poch's comments. Like, he told him, like, if you're going to get booked, don't get booked for dissent. Yeah, I think he took that quite literally, and he just went and got booked for like standing in front of the goalkeeper, which was it was mad.
I mean, maybe it's naivety. Maybe you get away with this stuff in La Liga. I'm not convinced you do, but like maybe before he was still doing this and didn't get the yellow cards quite as quickly. FPL Tom Red said he's the new Timo Werner. Yeah, I think. I don't know who I prefer actually out of Timo Werner. When Timo Werner came to Chelsea, I thought it was a perfectly good signing, but it just didn't turn out for him. They obviously are a bit cursed in this position, but at the end of the day, they're all different players. They've all got different opportunities, and they should be firing. The other one to address, obviously at Chelsea, is Malo Gusto, who I think his red card was unfortunate. I was chatting on our Ranks FC podcast this morning with Jack I do it with, and he thought it was a very fair red card. He thought he deserved it. He thought he could have broken his ankle. I didn't see it that way at all. I think in any other league in England, if you're Championship, League One, League Two, you're getting away with that week in, week out. And I can see on a freeze frame or a replay why you get the red card. But I quite like tackles like that. And he didn't break his ankle, so I think it's okay. What was your view on Malagusta?
I actually, I think it was a red, because I know, like, in this day and age, like, that is a red card. I mean, like, they're kind of stamping down on that kind of thing. And I think because it was kind of on a standing leg, they kind of deemed it dangerous. So I can see why it was a red. But if it was a yellow, I don't think anybody would have, like, blinked an eye. I think everybody said, yeah, it was a yellow. But at the same time, I can see why they gave a red.
Yeah, a 3-game ban for him now, and obviously it might open the door for Reece James. We don't know yet exactly what his fitness will be, but if Reece even comes back for one game at the back end of that and starts to reclaim his shirt, then it might be. I've got Malagusta in my team, and I've been very happy with him, actually. But this is going to be a challenge, I'd imagine, for him to get back in the side. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Resting Pilgrim says, even worse for Chelsea is that they have spent absolute fortunes and still had to keep playing Jackson. Yeah, I mean, I've gone over this a million times. Like, Chelsea's transfer strategy, just remarkable. You spend £1 billion and you've got Conor Gallagher as your captain. You've got no experience and leadership in the entirety of the squad, apart from Thiago Silva, who's 39 years old. And you've got Nicholas Jackson, a striker who is a complete unknown quantity in Premier League football. And the other thing, do you know what's getting to me a bit now, is that everybody's talking about Nkunku and saying, yeah, but he had this great partnership with Nkunku in pre-season. I'm like, lads, it was pre-season. You saw him about 3 times. Like, yeah, Nicholas Jackson looked all right in pre-season, but it hasn't converted here. So Nkunku's a very, very good player. But he's never played in the Premier League. I'm not even convinced that when he gets into this team, Chelsea are suddenly transformed. He's not Messi. So
yeah, no, definitely agree with you.
It's a tough one, but yeah, obviously I'm a Fulham fan, so I'm going to knock Chelsea every opportunity I get, and I'm going to hope that when we play them next Monday, they are still rubbish. Govinda says, Dean, I scored 83 points and ranked 183k. Is that any good? Yeah. What? Of course. Like, if you're ranked 183k right now, it feels like that's remarkable. Like, anyone who is actually like having a good season this season, like, it's so hard to have had a good season. And I feel like I was actually speaking to my best mate is in one of my mini leagues, and we were at a Fulham game at the weekend, and he's good at the game. But this season, he's flying. I think he's at 23k. I said to him, I was like, how come like you're doing so well? He said, do you know what it is? I deleted my Twitter account in pre-season, and I'm not watching anything, and I've gone completely on what I've seen myself, and every decision has been on me, and I haven't been swayed at all. He said, and I feel like this season of all seasons is probably been a good time for that to happen. Do you feel like, I mean, there's been a lot about this on Twitter and stuff about the template teams not playing out and content creators not having a good time of things. What do you think it is about this season that's affected people?
I don't know. I think a lot of it's due to, like, a lot of the template picks have done well. Like, like the likes of Maddison, Son, Salah. So I mean, everybody's like it's usually like like a few of the template picks that have done well, but there's so many like across the board have done well. It's like even when it looks like you've had a good week, like this week, I got 74 points, but I still got a small green. Some people got like 75, 76 who ranked a bit higher and got a red. That's because Trippier returned, Botman returned, Burn returned, so everyone's getting points. So I think that's kind of been the case, in the first 5 game weeks. So I think because of that, it's seeming like it's a lot harder than it is, because people are thinking all my players are scoring, but I'm not getting any kind of big green arrows. So I think kind of that's what it's kind of been so far, in my view. I don't think that'll continue. I think obviously it's only the first like 6 game weeks.
Yeah.
Hopefully that kind of powers down a bit, and can kind of go back to normality, because if this continues, then it'll be ranked about 1 million in gaming 2025.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've got to talk about the North London derby. Great game, and really enjoyed it as a neutral. Tottenham, if they'd have kept Son and I know Maddison picked up a knock, but if Maddison and Son had stayed on that pitch, I'm convinced Tottenham were the team that were going to go on and win that game. This Maddie-Son combination, it looks pretty special. I mean, Tottenham have already got 15 goals this season. Not bad when you're moving on from Harry Kane. The rate with which these two are combining for goals at the moment actually is higher than Kane and Son were combining at. Do you think it's sustainable? Do you think they found something special here?
Yeah, I mean, probably not at the rate they're assisting each other kind of at the moment, but yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, like Son at number 9 is going to be the main goal scorer, right? And Maddison in that team is going to be the main creator. He's going to be the one pulling the strings. So yeah, there's going to be a lot more Son goals and Maddison assists for sure. As I said, not at the rate we're going now, but it's definitely going to be up there. And yeah, I think a double up on them, for I'd say the next 5-6 game weeks looks good as well. Those have already got a double, like Gianni, have done really well the last few weeks.
Yeah. I was really torn about this decision. I saw Gianni add them both, and I was like, I'm not convinced you can have both, because I've always thought Tottenham would have bad weeks, and I'm always against that feeling. Like if they have a bad game and neither of them come in, like suddenly you're flopping for the week. But obviously it's paid off for him this week, big time. Julian Alvarez, got to address him. So many of us jumped on the Alvarez train this week, and with good reason. Like the form was there, the fixture was there, it all made sense. I had Watkins up front. He couldn't hit a barn door. I was trying to be loyal to him. There was no sense logically in sticking with him. I took him out. I went for Alvarez, subbed on 56 minutes, whatever it was, and Watkins goes and scores. But I still don't regret the decision, because as we said off air, it was the right choice, wasn't it? Like if I was put back in that position, I still think I would make it. But Alvarez still, do you think a good pick? I mean, do you own him?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the reason you got subbed early was because of the Rodri red card, right? Because Ake came on for him. So there's no way that we could have predicted that. I mean, if Rodri hadn't got sent off, he probably would have got, maybe at least 75, 80 minutes. Could have got a turn in that time. So yeah, I got a Jackson for him, and I would have done it 10 out of 10 times. And with the Watkins move, I think, I don't think that was as obvious as Jackson, but I think it, probably 8 or 9 times you would have done that move. I mean, Chelsea away. I know Chelsea have been poor, but you still fancy them against Villa. And, Watkins didn't score, and Alvarez had a fixture against Nottingham Forest, which, it could have been a huge scoreline, if that red card wasn't there. So, yeah, still definitely the right decision. And I think definitely still keep, because we've got Wolves away next. I can't see, Alvarez's minutes kind of decreasing too much. As long as kind of Bernardo Silva still injured, KDB still injured, he should still be getting a good amount of minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. CH, welcome back to the chat. CH, one of our regulars here, Abdul, actually the admin, and looks after the chat and comment section for us. CH was missing on Friday's show, which I think is the first time, perhaps ever. CH, glad to see you back. And she says, love that Dean has started with a Chelsea rant. Yeah. I've made a bit of a living off it, to be honest, over the course of my career. So I'm not going to stop now, especially when they are finally actually not very good. So I'm going to keep this going as long as I possibly can. I am going to give Fulham a little bit of love right now. I was at the Crystal Palace Fulham game at the weekend. Look, Bernd Leno is brilliant. I think he's the best goalkeeper in the game, to be honest with you. I think he actually might be rated as the most informed goalkeeper in the game right now anyway. But on the eye test, and in the stats, he's measuring up game after game after game. Only Man City was the one when he scored a 0. Fine, whatever, we lost 5-1. But 10 points he scored at the weekend, 6 points the game before that. I know it looks like Fulham might have, after coming up a tough run of games, but he'll still get points. He makes so many saves. Do you think he's underrated in the game? Because not that many people own him.
No, they don't. And I mean, yeah, I seen actually last week, Fulham have actually had the worst expected goals conceded this season. So that's obviously because of Leno. He's kept them in those games, and he's keeping them afloat kind of thing at the moment. Again, I don't think he's gonna get the points at the same rate as he is now, but he's at 4.5. I mean, it is hindsight, but he is the best 4.5 million goalkeeper now. And it's always so hard to kind of pin down that the best goalkeeper every season, because it's just so random. But this season, Leno is the one, and yeah, the way Fulham are playing, they could concede a lot of shots, and Leno's going to make a lot of saves.
Yeah, I mean, I've got an Arna, for example, at the moment, and I'm thinking, well, I could save a few $100,000 here by downgrading technically to Leno, who's let in the same goals as Man United have this season, and I'm quite confident over the course of the season, the difference between him and Onana is not going to be that vast. I really don't think that Man United are going to be keeping that many more clean sheets that Fulham at the rate they've been defending, that's going to be a concern. So I have to say that is something I've been considering. I want to pick your brains a bit on Man United, actually. I saw that you've written a good piece today in The Athletic on your takeaways from the last game week, and you've addressed Man United. I want to know what you think about the attacking options here, particularly around Rashford and Højlund. Like, I jumped off Rashford in about game week 3 or 4. I have no intentions of going back there, but I can understand, looking at the next 3 or 4 games, why certainly you wouldn't want to get rid of him. But do you think there should be any temptation even to sign him? Like, what do you think about that?
I think at the moment, United assets are like a don't buy, don't sell. I probably wouldn't be looking to sell Rashford, because obviously I think with the midfielders that we've got, you're probably going to be selling a good asset. You know what I mean, like a Son or a Maddison, or a Saka, right? So probably not a buy. But if you've got Rashford or Bruno, honestly, like Crystal Palace at home, Brentford at home, they're both really good fixtures and then they've got Sheffield United away. All 3 of those are really good for attacking purposes, right? Even if you've like somehow end up on Højlund, I would keep him as well. And you mentioned Onana. I think I would definitely keep Onana for those next 3 fixtures.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah,
definitely. And then maybe look to get it, when they've got Man City in game week 10. But attacking wise, I mean, United they've been terrible defensively, but they do tend to like score. They don't really have, they don't tend to score like 2 or 3 per game, but they do tend to get at least a goal a game, and it's going to be either it's mostly Bruno or Rashford who gets the goal or the assist. So I definitely think for me, I've got Bruno and Rashford, and they're going nowhere. Yeah, and they're going nowhere in the next 3 at least. I'm quite happy with them. And kind of my loyalty is paid off with Bruno so far, and we're hoping in the next 3 it can pay off for Rashford as well. But yeah, I think honestly, and another point on that as well, I do think when Amrabat comes in, that will really kind of stabilize them, kind of going forward and going back. I was looking at some of his stats, like in the World Cup, and he's not only like a ball-winning defensive midfielder. He's really good at transitioning play as well, and he done that really well for Morocco in the World Cup. So if he can bring that kind of into the United midfield, then I do think they'll improve a lot. But at the moment, they need somebody to kind of partner Casemiro. He's like he's been doing it himself for the past like 18 months. Yeah, and I think when Amrabat comes in, we might see a different Man United team.
I totally think so. I mean, we've already seen like Reguilon and Højlund in the Champions League, where United's 2 best players, perhaps only 2 good players. The players that are coming in, apart from maybe Onana, with a freshness and fresh eyes and stuff, are actually seeming to perform quite well. And Amrabat, the whole point is he transforms that midfield. So maybe that will work out for Rashford. He's still 31% owned, that's a lot of loyalty being shown to him, considering the output so far and the fact that he's now 8.9 million in the game. But United play Crystal Palace, Brentford, Sheffield United. It's a platform for them to actually kick off their season, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like if they can't capitalize on those next 3 fixtures, then they've got to go. And I think even if they do, I think most will get into game week 10 anyway. I think that's when a lot of guys are wild carding. But yeah, those next 3 are there for the taking.
Yeah. Danny says Bruno and Rashford, I'm giving them 1 more week and then 1 is being sold. Frode is saying, should I do a Rashford to Salah switch this week? What would your advice be on getting? I mean, if you can get there, I mean, it's quite a hike, but you've obviously got some cash in the bank there, Frode. Would you advise a Rashford to Salah transfer at this point?
That would be the only player that I would sell him for. If I can go to Salah for free, then for sure. I mean, that's the one thing I regret this season, Dean, is not starting with Mo Salah. The argument was there to not go without him because of all of the good midfield options, but it's just really not fun owning him. And he's just my favourite player as well. So yeah, that is the one player I would recommend.
Goes against the name, doesn't it? FPL no Salah.
It does. We've got a lot of stick for that. But yeah, I mean, if Salah's the only player I'd sell, Rashford I'd do enough for.
Yeah, do you know what? I was about 2 days before the season. None of my drafts had Salah in. And then right at the last minute, I just didn't like the look of my team. I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to get Salah because it can't go that wrong, surely. And to be honest, it's probably the decision that's kept me at the million mark.
He's the only player that sort of turned in every single game so far.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's got a return in every single game so far. He's got like
Yeah,
5, 5, 5, and then 10 and 10. So
amazing.
yeah, good.
Yeah, always a frightening prospect to bet against Mo
Mm.
Salah. Danny says, I've had Bruno and Rashford since game week 1 and have a 270k ranking. Just use other differentials at the right time. Well done, Danny. That is very, very impressive. Luke says, do you think 4-5-1 is becoming an option? That's quite a rare one to use.
I don't see why, because I think if you've got Haaland, then you're going to have, either Bruno, you're going to have, Alvarez there, or a Watkins, or even a Morris now. So,
Yeah.
I don't particularly like the 4-5-1 because it means you're going to have 2 4.5 million forwards, and it kind of weakens your bench. But yeah, I guess if it's worked for you so far, then why not? But
Yeah.
it's not for me.
Yeah, absolutely. The last part of my notebook, actually, I did want to ask you about Colton Morris. He's got 2 goals for Luton so far. They have both been penalties, to be fair.
Yeah.
Luton's only goals, I think, have been 2 penalties, and then there was that other goal which they scored, and I think it was in like the 93rd minute of something, and was reasonably pointless at the time. I think it was West Ham.
Yeah.
So goals are going to be hard to come by. They still don't look like a team that I think will survive in this division. But you think that it might be a good choice?
I mean, the thing is, right, as you just said, both of his goals have been penalties. If you look at his non-pen XG, so far it's been 0.15, which that's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But I think you'd expect that from a 5.5 forward that plays for Luton. His expected assists been 0.16, so that's been nothing to write home about. But saying all that, he does have Everton and Burnley, which, fixtures-wise, you can't ask for much better. And he is on penalties, and we do have to take that in consideration in FPL. And, he is probably going to be, I'd say, probably the second most popular captain option this week. So I think if you've got Jackson, I think it's pretty much a no-brainer. I think it's fine to take the punt on him. If you've got an Alvarez or a Watkins, then I probably wouldn't. I'd probably just stick to the Haaland captaincy, because I think if you bring in Morris, you probably I'd say you'd be very tempted to captain him. So I think if you do bring in Morris, you probably would captain him, right?
Yeah.
Because he's got a double. But then when you bring in when you're bringing Morris in, like say if, for example, you bring in Morris for Alvarez, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to take in consideration Alvarez's points, and then top of that, that Haaland captaincy, and the chances of that paying off for me are pretty slim. But if you've got a Jackson who's suspended, then it's a bit of a no-brainer. So it really depends who you've got. I don't like him as an option, but because he's he's nailed to start, he's a talisman, he's on penalties. They could easily all it needs is one penalty in those over those 2 games, and it's paid off for owners.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. Obviously, Luton play Everton away on Saturday, and then they have that rearranged fixture against Burnley at home. As you say, there is high penalty potential in those 2 fixtures. Everton defenders are clumsy. They give you opportunities in and around the box. And Burnley, flattered to deceive, I guess, would be what I'd use against them so far. I find Burnley actually a hard one to judge because their fixtures have been pretty tricky. The one game you really would have expected them to get something out of was with Forest, and they did get something out of it. You thought maybe they could have with Villa, but actually Villa are a very good team this season. And all the other the games that they've lost were against really tough opponents. Yeah. So I think Burnley are being harshly judged at the moment. So that Luton game is going to be a really big one for them. But there you go. Morris on standby for all of you if you're looking for an option for the weekend. Let's go to a couple of questions before we do Pimp My Team. Govinda said, shall I get Trippier for a hit or just get Shah for free? I've already got Botman. What would your advice be on that one, mate?
Oh, it really depends who you're getting rid of and when you're wildcarding, really. But just say, for example, you're going to wildcard in game week 10, right? That's still 4 game weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
Yeah, because it's for a hit. So, you know what? I'd probably just think, Trippier still edges it.
Do you think so with the hit? Yeah.
Eventually, yeah. I'd probably say he just edges it.
What did you make of the 8-0?
Oh, it was just madness. I mean, 8 different goal scorers. And just speaking on Shah there as well, he was the only one in the starting 11 who never got an attack in return. So his owners will be kind of feeling a bit hard done by. But yeah, I mean, I think obviously, I think Sheffield United, they're a promoted team. but at the same time, it was a bit of a freak result. I mean, beating any team 8-0, is no kind of easy. It's no mean feat. It's not something that happens quite often.
Yeah.
And but saying that, we already knew Newcastle were good, defensively and going forward. And I don't think it changes much in terms of their assets. I think even before the Sheffield United game, people were looking at Trippier, Botman, Burn, and I think they're going to look at them even now as well with their fixtures coming up.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. Right, last question before we move on. Eddie says, should I get Diaby in for Sterling? I mean, look, Sterling had a poor weekend, didn't he? I mean, I think Sterling's been much improved this season, and he even had 2 or 3 games in a row that were good, which has not been something we've seen for at least 18 months. So that was promising. But yeah, he had a very strange performance, didn't he, at the weekend? And I would be tempted to pull the trigger on something like Diaby coming in.
I would give Sterling one more week because I think he is the only Chelsea player I would keep if I had him. The reason being was that I thought he didn't play well at the weekend, but he provided that cross for Disasi's goal, right, which was just offside.
Yeah,
he actually got into like a good one-on-one position where he was ruled offside, but when looked at the VAR, he actually wasn't offside.
I felt as well like he kind of expected the flag to. I never. He
Yeah.
didn't take it with any conviction that he ever thought he was going to score, did he?
I don't think so. I think he kind of had that in the back of his mind. But I mean, the point is, he got into that position,
Yeah.
and he also had like a point blank shot saved, just in the right hand side from Emi Martinez as well. So for FPL wise, he's getting in good positions, and I would give him one more week before getting rid of him. I think is probably is a good fixture. Obviously, you've got Berlino there, but.
We give up chances. I mean, look,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they've got the worst XGC in the league, so there is just a matter of time before somebody puts a few past them.
I mean, when we played against Arsenal, for example, I mean they had an off day in front of goal, but they were carving us open again and again in the channels. And I have to admit that somebody like Sterling being on form in that game could actually be the guy that kills us off. I'm not worried about like Mudryk and stuff, but Sterling, has got that potential. Yeah. Mika says Sterling can't finish. That's just not true. I just don't think that's true.
Just look at his goals and assists over the last 6 seasons.
Like I think Sterling's a remarkable player, and I've always loved Sterling. He's going through a tough spell. There's no doubt about it. But
another thing on Sterling as well. Do you think he'll play up front this week? Because obviously Jackson's not there. So I don't know if Broja is actually back from. I know he's been training, but I don't think
he played. Yeah, I think that there is potential. I was speaking to somebody earlier, and they said because it's a whole week away, they think Broja might be able to start the game, and I think that there will be a temptation to do that. I think, to be honest, like looking at the forwards that have joy against Fulham, I think Broja would do quite well against us in terms of opening up spaces. So I think he'll play, but how many minutes Broja has in him, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because Sterling will probably get 90.
Yeah, so Sterling will get 90. Yeah, and even if Broja goes off, there's a chance that Sterling, plays more centrally, or at least has to get in there. So Ellis says, finally, we'll see Chilwell at striker. You might not be far off.
You never know.
You honestly don't know these days with Chelsea. Right, let's move on. We're half hour into the show. Keep your questions coming in because we are going to come back to these for the last 15 minutes of the show. We're joined by FPL Salah Abdul tonight while Gianni is away. Make sure you hit like and subscribe if you're new to us particularly. But yeah, let's hit Pimp My Team. We can go through how our game weeks went. Here we go. We're starting with you, mate. You said your best game week so far.
Yeah, I think so. I got 74 points, which was a small green.
Yep.
I was fairly happy with the. I mean, I couldn't have asked for much better, really. I mean, Saka, Bruno, Son all returned. I think the only kind of, I'd say, downer was Alvarez blanking. Coming off early. That was quite annoying. Especially when Jackson was playing the next day. But yeah, so I was really glad when Jackson blanked as well. Pickford, I knew he wasn't going to keep a clean sheet. Not one of my best decisions to start him this season. But yeah, I mean, a fairly good week. And I think I've seen a lot of people, in their 40s and 40s and 50s who had like a really poor week and who didn't have a team too much different to mine. So I was just really glad not to get a battering this week.
Yeah. We've actually got quite a few differences, me and you. I think I counted quickly before we came on. I think there's about 6 differences
All
in
right,
our
wow.
team, so that's quite nice. I'm glad we've got a bit of
Yeah.
difference here. And Buemo, somebody that I never pick, mainly because he plays for Brentford and I'm Fulham, and it's a stubbornness that has cost me on many occasions. But how do you feel about him this season? Obviously, a disappointing no return for him in a fixture like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was disappointing, and he was playing out wide on the right as well, which was a wee bit concerning. So he was quite uninvolved, but I think it was like an overall bad performance from Brentford.
Yeah.
Getting beat from Everton at home, it has to be. So I'm kind of putting that down as a one-off. I think if you look at his next two, they've got Forest next, and then they got United, and then they got Burnley at home. So I'm going to keep him for the next three, and then reassess. Then I don't think he's a huge fire. He's plays 90 minutes. Brentford
Yeah.
are a decent attacking side, and he's on penalties as well.
I
So
think it was a one-off. I spoke to one of my mates as a Brentford fan, and he described it as the worst home performance since they moved into that stadium.
right,
So
well,
you just got to take it for what it was. And
yeah,
Everton, especially once they were in front and Cad Calvert-Lewin on, that does change things a bit in terms of a goal threat, which they just haven't had all season. We'll have to see whether that changes Everton and the way we can perceive them. But until Calvert-Lewin's put a couple of games together, we cannot trust him. Just want to run through a few other scores before I get back to your team. Mark, one of our chasers, scored 106 points this week. Unbelievable stuff. Well done, mate. Ellis Jones says he came in with 91. Eddie got a very respectable 75. Jono, well done. He's got 84. Paul Riley, 102 points. I mean, anytime you get over 100 points is brilliant, but in a game week like that is great. And poor old Steve Sedman, he says, stop it, everyone. I got 64 points. Still not bad, mate. I think 64 is not a bad score from that game week. Ben Chilwell, obviously, like, this is just a bizarre situation that Chilwell owners find themselves in. He's being rotated for Mudryk when that should not really be the case. And Mudryk's not even playing well and Chilwell's not being used there. So what do you do with that situation?
Well, I've got rid of him. Like for the first time in I'd say 4 or 5 seasons, I made a really really early transfer like on the Sunday night.
Wow.
So I had the exact funds for Trippier, and I just thought it was worth making the move. Just because I don't think Newcastle will put a strong 11 against City on Wednesday.
Yeah,
I think he probably will get arrested and Liverpool will get a wee run out. So yeah, I made an early transfer. And just you know what, he got benched for the last 2 games. He has to go, in my opinion, especially if you've not got Trippier or a Newcastle defender. And the funny thing is, he probably will start against Fulham because Gusto's out, and he'll probably shift down into left back. With Colwell kind of getting shifted into kind of centre back. So yeah, but still, even with that, even if he does start against Fulham, I still think Trippier's a better option with Burnley at home.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, as you say, Chilwell probably will start against Fulham, but Trips is a safe bet. He's having a good season, and so are Newcastle. So that sounds good. Is there anything else in your team that concerns you? What you're looking to change?
Not necessarily. I mean, obviously, I won't have ideally, I would have liked to have bought Trippier in last week and then maybe got Morrison for Jackson this week just to kind of cover myself. But yeah, that's all. I mean, Alvarez can easily outscore Jackson. So yeah, pretty happy with the rest of my team. But I probably won't be making any more changes.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Right, let's move on to another team. Which one will we be getting next? I'm assuming mine, but you never know. Yep, it is my team. I got 73 points this week, so pretty similar to you, really. Disappointed with the Alvarez one because that would have been Oliver Watkins, and that would have been a really good week for me. Gusto, obviously disappointing, but it is what it is. You've got to accept those situations when they arise. I have got a bit of a conundrum with Enzo because obviously, like, he's getting good positions. He's playing every week. And I'm assuming he starts to score points soon. And obviously, he's kind of like, he pads out my team because he's relatively low priced. But I don't know I want to persist with him. Like, I just don't know if he's actually ever going to score. Like, what would you do if you had Enzo in your team?
I mean, how much have you got in the bank there?
Oh, I've got quite a bit, to be fair. Let me just double check it exactly. But I've got 2 million in the bank, yeah.
2 million? So 7 million? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess it's a 7 million asset, yeah.
I mean, what about Mbeumo? No, is Mbeumo more?
Well,
Oh,
this is it.
you're
I
a
could.
Fulham fan, aren't you? So you're not
Yeah,
gonna.
but this is the thing. I need to overcome this. We talked about this on the show last. Someone said to me, "Dean,
You've
you've
got
got to
to.
stop this stubbornness." And I was like, "Do you know what? They're right. Like, what? I'm only hurting myself here. Like, Buemo is a
Yeah,
very good fantasy asset, and I'm ignoring him week after week just because he plays for a team I don't like. I don't do that with Chelsea anymore. I don't do that. I can't do
yeah,
that if I'm going to actually be good at this game.
yeah.
So maybe you're right. Who have Brentford got next?
Brentford have got Forest.
Forest. Okay, so it is a
Yeah.
nice fixture. Yeah,
Nice
that
fixture.
is
Yeah.
a
I'm
good
just quite
point.
impressed that you've managed to get 73 points with no Newcastle defenders. That is pretty
No.
impressive.
Do you know what? I was so scared of the fact that they had the Champions League coming, and
Yeah.
looking at the fixtures, I was like, I just don't know how this is panning out. I don't know how much energy they're exerting. I don't know if they're rotating the team.
Mm.
I just didn't know what's happened. As it happens, they've gone away and they've got a point against Milan, and they've battered Sheffield
Very
United
bad.
8-0. So
Yeah.
there was no justification in this. But that was my concern, and it's probably something I am going to have to address relatively soon. I mean, I'm still going to be okay. I can bring a Doji into the team for Gusto and get through if I need.
If you've got 2 million in the bank, could you not get Trippier for Estepinian? Yeah, you could even for a Guardiola.
Yeah, I could do for either of those for sure. Yeah, absolutely
Yeah,
can. Yeah,
that'd be a name
Trippier
I'd be looking at.
at 6.6, Nesto Penan's 5.3. So I can definitely get to a transfer like that. And I think you're right. Yeah. So in Burmo, one I need to look at, and definitely an absence of Newcastle defence is threatening to cost me. There's no doubt about it. Let's just get to this super chat from Mark. Thank you for sending this in, Mark. I really appreciate it. He says, would you sub Bayer or Estupinan? Obviously hard to know given based on what the rest of your team is, but yeah, what would your advice be on that one? I'll follow you up.
So either I think he's asking either play Bayer or Estepinian, yeah?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I think I'd go for Bayer just because of that Luton game.
Yeah.
They're not going to keep a clean sheet against Newcastle, but against Luton, I think they probably will, and I think they'll be favourites for that game. So I'd probably stick with Bayer, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, Brighton have got Aston Villa away, early kickoff
Mm.
on Saturday. Estupinan definitely plays, but that is a really difficult game to call in terms of which way that goes. It could bring points, but equally, I think Bayer, given the fact he's got 2 games to play, and one of them is against the one of the other worst teams in the league, then just go with Bayer, Mark. I think that is probably your best bet on that one. Elsewhere in my team, I don't think there's anything else I'm too concerned about. Yeah, I think I'm happy with the rest of it. Bulldog's going to have to go at some point, but I'll address that a bit further down the line, maybe even leave it till I get to the wild card. But let's move on because we've got at least one other team to look at, and I think maybe even Gianni's as well. I think the producer's keen to show off that we had someone in our ranks having a good team. It's a good week. Yeah, here we go. Batici's Babes, 112 points. Gianni not here tonight. He's off celebrating somewhere. He's got the champagne flowing. He's absolutely had it off. Unbelievable scoring. Trippier with 18 points is honestly remarkable.
Yeah.
And Matoma coming in as well at 14. They're just two.
Came on at half time as well, Matoma.
Coming on at half time. I mean, just didn't see it coming. Say, like coming into this game week, I was 20 or 30 points ahead of Gianni. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, okay, I at least get another week or so ahead of Gianni. And he comes up with this. I'm really, really hurt by it. But yeah, I mean, it's impressive, isn't it?
Fair play to him, yeah. I mean, it's a good team. I mean, look at that midfield is like, scintillating. And we had Trippier in place. He's planned it well.
It's funny because if you look at that team, you're thinking, well, yeah, at some point you're going to have an amazing week, aren't you? If that's your midfield, like you're just waiting for the week it all bangs. And now it has. Like, how does it get better from here for him? I don't know. Yeah. But he's had an unbelievable. It's probably the biggest green arrow in the game, I'd imagine, from last week. So Museka says national lottery odds Batici. Yeah, basically was that. Ellis says, what a week. Michael says Gianni the GOAT. All right, lads, you're making us feel a bit amateur here. Enough of all that. But yeah, well done, G. An amazing week. And then we'll move on to our chasers. So this season, Abdul, we've got a community team where everyone in the comments, everyone that follows us week by week, they pick their own team and we do polls and whatnot. I'll be honest, they're not doing very well. They're not doing very well at all. But this was their best week so far. I'm pretty sure of that. They've come in with 70 points. They're trying to be a little bit different with the team, not trying to be too templates. There's a few picks in there that perhaps people wouldn't make for their normal team, although it is becoming a little bit more template in the last few weeks. Eze, I have to say, I was obviously at the Palace Fulham game. He did nothing. I was like, it was the one Palace player that I was really scared of. It was a pretty dull game. There wasn't a lot happening in it. Very tactical. And you're thinking, okay, well, Eze has got that unlock potential. Nothing. I was really, really surprised that there was not even one moment where Eze came up with some magic. So that was a bit strange. This is probably your first look at this team. I mean, how would you assess their team?
It's good. I mean, I think it's pretty template apart.
It is now. Yeah, it's funny. I said it wasn't, and for the last three game weeks, it really has become so.
Yeah, they must have just kind of shifted to the template. Yeah. But yeah, I think Eze is obviously the one in there that isn't the template player, and probably possibly kind of Guardiola as well. But yes, it's a good team. I mean, this week obviously good. Had Watkins. I think over the next few weeks that team will do well. I think obviously Chilwell is probably the weakest thing. Probably the one that you'd probably be looking at transferring out next. But yeah, it's a good team. And Eze's been actually quite. I mean, I didn't actually watch the Fulham game. Actually, I didn't watch any highlights because the game was 0-0. I don't tend to watch the highlights for that. But prior to that, he's been quite unfortunate not to get more returns. So he has been a good pick, and I think those who kind of went early with Eze got a bit unlucky.
Yeah. What we normally do is we usually pick a couple of positions that are at threat, and then we look to make the changes at the end of the week. And CH usually leads this to see what changes people want to make. And there's the message. Ellis says he'd like Trippier in, Chilwell out. So that's one to take note of. Frode agrees, says Chilwell has to be turned into Trippier. So that's an obvious transfer to make. I think there is only one free transfer at the moment to be made here. Jono suggests Eze to Diaby. I'm not sure about that one.
How much is in the bank in this team?
Oh, I have to check with the producer. Producer, if you can see how much is available, then write it in the private chat and I'll have a look. I'm not sure, but we'll get back to that in 1 second. And Buemo out for Diaby, says resting Pilgrim. Michael says there's no Newcastle defenders. So yeah, there's quite a few there things that we could actually address. The answer to the bank question is there's 1.5 million in the bank.
Yeah, for me, it would definitely be Chilwell to Trippier.
Yeah,
I still think Eze is a decent option.
So would you be happy with that team for the next game week?
Yeah,
You think if you just made that one change?
I'd be pretty happy with that team. I'd be happy with like Watkins against Brighton at home. That's going to be, I think, a good fixture for Villa. I think that's going to be like a high-scoring game.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we'll mark that card. CH, if you could just remember that the first transfer we'll aim to make, we'll do a poll on this on Friday. Will our transfer be Chilwell to Trippier? I imagine it will. It seems to be a pretty popular one. Michael says he prefer Botman for Trippier, but we could add that into the poll once we get there. But certainly a Newcastle defender needs to be coming into this Chasers team. As I say, they have finally started to pick up. They have a total of 329 points at the moment, Chasers. So it's not terrible, but it's not great. So there's still room for improvement. And you can see what Gianni's achieved in one game week. That's all we've got to do. CH, there's 1.5 in the bank, 1.5 million in the bank. So there's some room to wiggle around with there, and we can definitely improve this team. But yeah, it looks pretty good to me. Right, people, we're heading into the last 15 minutes of the show. Thanks to everybody that has joined us so far tonight. If you haven't subscribed, then please do. And please do make sure you give us a like as well so we get seen more often. Joined by FPL Salah tonight. Abdul's here to help me answer your questions in the last 15 minutes as we look to help your teams and perhaps even help our teams as well along the way. So you start getting in Some new questions. Mark says, this team has become very template. That's why it's tanking. Yeah, but I think this is why it converted to a template, because it was tanking even worse when you guys were like going off with these random picks. So we've got to yeah, Greg says, got to think about when to wildcard. What is the most popular feeling in the community at the moment in terms of wildcarding?
I think right now a lot of people are wildcarding 9 and 10 because they've got really good fixture swings for Liverpool and Villa. So I think that's when I'm kind of planning to use mine as well. But outside that, I think a lot those who save after game week 10, it's going to be game week 19, like the last game week to use it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. CH says, yeah, a lot of people aiming at 8 to 10. Right, Mike says, I took Mitoma out, benched Son, brought in Neto and Edouard, and still somehow got 80 points. I mean, that is genuinely remarkable. This week is Edouard out, depending on injury, or Pedro and Morris in. Good luck all. Yes, just trying to take all that in, Mike, all that information. But yeah, Morris in was something that Abdul talked about earlier on in the chat. Obviously, Luton with that double up and big penalty potential in those two matches against Everton and Burnley. So if you're ever tempted to get a Luton player, this is going to be the week, and there's only one person to go for. It is Morris, so go for it.
Yeah.
Jared says, start Mbeumo or Diaby. A wrong spelling. That really threw me, the spelling of Diaby there. But Aston Villa's Diaby or Mbeumo, which way would you go with that one?
I'd go on Mbeumo. I think that's a tough one, but I'd always favour the guy who plays 90 minutes and takes penalties. So yeah, it's not a clear cut, but I'd go on Mbeumo.
I like Diaby a lot. He's honestly just one of those players, though, that I'm scared of players like him, because they can go on these runs where looking great and then they disappear for 3 or 4 weeks. And because I haven't got like I've got like seen him in different leagues, but we've seen nothing more of him in the Premier League. We don't know how to judge him long term. So
yeah,
I'm a bit put off by that, if I'm completely honest. Right. Eddie says, out of this midfield, I have, who should I replace and get 2.5 million in the bank? I have Fernandes, Rashford, Saka, and Mbeumo and Sterling. So who should he replace out of that lineup? I mean, it doesn't seem a particularly obvious one to me that you'd need to get rid of, but
yeah, I would keep that midfield.
Yeah,
I would keep that midfield. Definitely this week. I mean, I think all 5 of them got good fixtures. Again, as I said, the only players I would look to get rid of, buy in this week would be Salah for either, Rashford or Bruno if you can, but if not, save or to make that transfer elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, it is a week that has midweek fixtures in the EFL Cup, and Man United do actually have Crystal Palace back to back. This is something that I'd kind of actually forgotten yesterday when I was running through my team last night and just thinking about what I might do. I was like, oh yeah, I got to be a bit careful here, because like a lot of these teams are actually playing midweek, and there is always that like injury potential or all those usual flags that go out. I mean, EFL Cup's such a hard thing to judge, isn't it? But would you still, you already made your transfer early, but like generally, would you still hold off on a week like this?
I mean, generally, I never make early transfers, and I would recommend, and advise not to make early transfers. Even if it's EFL Cup, you never know. So if you can wait, and if you've got enough, room there, there's always usually an alternative transfer. If you've been priced out, and the only time I would make that early transfer is if the transfer you're looking at is much better than any alternative.
Yeah,
which was the situation I was in. But generally, just wait until the games are over and the press conferences are done, and then make your moves then.
Yeah, it's always logical. Keep your questions coming in for the last 10 minutes. Museka says, do you think it's worth extreme team juggling trying to get Salah in without the wild card? Now, obviously, Liverpool have Tottenham away this weekend. Like, that's a really, really difficult fixture to judge. Now, don't get me wrong. I think behind Man City, like Liverpool are the best team in the league at the moment, and I think they'll give them the best run for their money. Yeah, but a fixture like that, I don't know. I would be going out of my way to find a way to get Salah of all weeks, but maybe you've got a different view.
No, I agree. I mean, like, it's a fixture where I think that there's going to be goals, and I think Salah is a good option. But again, I wouldn't be ripping up my team as they're saying like extreme juggling. I wouldn't be doing that to bring in Salah. I think Salah can be bought in over the next 2 game weeks. They've got Brighton away in game week 8, and then game week 9 is when the good fixtures really start with Everton at home. So I think if you're looking to get Salah, just start planning now. If you're planning on not using the wild card and you want to bring Salah in, then start planning now and get him in game week 9. And I think it can be done in like 2 or 3 transfers.
Yeah. I like this question from CH. Says, with so many goals this season, are the premium players essential? And I understand the premise of this question because there's definitely alternatives that come into play here. I mean, we haven't even talked about Højlund barely at all this season, to be honest, on this show. And certainly we haven't talked about him yet this game week. I mean, for me, Højlund, who's priced at 7.1, is definitely going to become a temptation. I love his movements. I think he's been really unlucky so far. And it just feels like you said earlier in the show, once Amrabat is in that team, once United are functioning a bit differently and he's going to get better service, he could be like one of these assets that's really impressive, couldn't he?
Could be, yeah. I mean, he's got the potential, and I'm hopeful. I mean, and I do think he will kind of, hit it off this season. But I mean, I wouldn't be moving early on him. I just think when Man United click into gear, we don't know. And I do think they will eventually, but it's just the when. And I think if you were going to kind of move on Højlund, now would be the time because of the next 3 games.
Yeah,
I don't think I would. I would be able to do that just now.
How do you feel about avoiding Son, Salah, Haaland?
I mean, you've got to have at least, I'd say, 2 kind of premium players in there for your captaincy. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, Haaland is, a given.
Yeah.
But then you've got to have, I'd say, 2 of Bruno, Son, or a Salah. You can't fit them all in, but yeah, you need to have alternative captaincy options and players who just perform consistently. I mean, a lot of guys were saying made the argument of not going with Salah at the start of the season because of his price and because all the midfielders were so cheap. But look what he's done. He's turned in every single game. That's what you get for that price. You get consistency.
That is exactly it. Yeah, and that's why I went to him in the end, because I just knew that even though he was more expensive, I should be guaranteed points every week. Mika says, who to start? Maddison at home to Liverpool or Diaby at home to Brighton? Yeah, Aston Villa get the weekend going at Villa Park. So it's a 12:30, that one, which does put some people off, because if they don't return, then it kind of ruins your week. But Maddison is obviously looking very impressive, and he's just such a character as well, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'd play Maddison if he's fit, of course. We did have
true.
That scared, but yeah, if they're both fit, then it's got to be Maddison for me.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a no-brainer too. Right, Rio says, which one should I bench? Sterling and Buemo or Alvarez? I mean, I would. That's a really tough one. Oh, I was going to say Sterling just straight off the cuff, but I've actually had second thoughts. And
I mean, definitely not Alvarez. Definitely not Alvarez.
No chance, Alvarez.
You know what? I think out of those, it is probably Sterling that you would, but it just doesn't feel comfortable.
There's less to lose, I feel like, if it's Sterling, because
that's a good point. That's a good point.
A lot of people own him.
Surely he's got another player he can bench from out those 3.
Yeah, I feel like those are all really good players for this game week, and I don't think that if possible you should be doing that. So maybe have a rethink. Right, Jono says, Gordon as a 5.5 Salah enabler. I mean, I don't know exactly what the Harvey Barnes situation is, but obviously Gordon took full advantage yesterday. I think, look, I had reservations about Gordon coming into the season. Didn't know how much we'd even be seeing him, but he's definitely upped his game, hasn't he? And as a 5.5 Salah enabler, I'd say that's pretty good. Yeah,
I totally agree. I was actually looking at Gordon before this week, and just as like a cheap midfielder, as an enabler, and he was benched against Newcastle. I was like, okay, that's that out of the window. But then Barnes got injured, and then he came on, and I think he got a goal and assist. So Gordon's a great shout. If Barnes is out long term, then he's going to keep starting, especially with that performance. So it's a great shout by Joro.
The only thing we've got to remember about Newcastle is this fixture list. So 27th September, they play the EFL Cup game against Man City. Then they've got Burnley in the Premier League on the 30th. Then a few days later, they've got PSG in the Champions League, which is like a home fixture. Such a big moment in their season and also in their history, to be honest. And then a few days after that, they've got West Ham away. So obviously then there's the international break after that. But these next 4 games, there's really no rest for Newcastle. Do you think Gordon is a player that you can rely on for minutes?
Oh,
tough one, isn't it?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, it's because he's just. I mean, he was benched in the last game and he's only came on because Barnes got injured. So that's a really tough one to call. I wouldn't really know with that, to be honest.
Yeah. So I can see there's a question on the screen right now. I just want to get over to this one that I've just spotted out the corner of my eye from Mark. He says, Dean, I don't get it. You're saying Diaby is new to the Premier League and you don't trust him, yet Højlund you do. Well, they're totally different players. Like, what I mean is, like, Diaby is typically a wide player who gets at people, who his output is a bit more hit and miss, like it has been. And like the style of his play is totally different. Højlund is central. The chances are being created for him. And I feel like in the system that Man United are building, like the whole job for Højlund is to score. And from what I've seen so far, I really like the positions he's picking up. He's got a real sharpness about him. Seems really hungry. United fans are desperate for him to succeed. And I know it sounds stupid right now, but I still expect Man United to end up being a better team than Aston Villa over the course of this season. So I just have a bit more faith in, like, I'm looking at this overall. I'm not saying like in the next 2 weeks, Højlund's going to be better than Diaby. I just think over the course of this season, Højlund could be a better asset. So that's just really where my trust comes from in that one. Anyway, let's move on. Peter says Sterling out, Bowen in. Sheffield United are ridden with injuries and look awful. Maybe a captaincy differential. Jarrod Bowen, honestly, gets overlooked a lot, especially by me. And I've been tempted so many times to go there and always end up just looking somewhere else. Really annoying.
Yeah, I mean, the fixtures weren't the best to start off, but I mean, they've got Sheffield United, but then they've got Newcastle at home and then Villa next. So, and then you've got Sterling there with Fulham and Burnley next. So, I mean, Bowen is a great option, but it's not a move I'd be looking at. And the captain says, that's quite wild when you've got Haaland and Morris as well. But yeah, it could work out. I mean, it's FPL at the end of the day, it's football, but it's not one that I particularly like.
Yeah, Aston Villa fans continue to argue with me. Dean, I'm a Villa fan. Diaby is playing up front alongside Watkins. Your point is wrong. No, I know that. I'm saying he's a different type of player to what Højlund is built as, and I just don't know yet if I trust Diaby. Like, just because he's had a good season doesn't mean that continues every single. If he continues at this rate, he's going to be joining Real Madrid by the end of the season. I don't think he will be. Like, he's a really good player, but I don't believe that the way that he started this season is going to be continued, because it's going to be extremely difficult to live up to that. But yeah, he's a good player. I'm not saying he's not. Michael says bench Gvardiol or Saliba. That's quite a big call either way, isn't it?
I'm just double checking the fixtures. So Arsenal have got who's Arsenal got this?
Arsenal got Man City.
Arsenal got Bournemouth and City got.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I'm thinking of the wrong game week, aren't I? Yes, the week after.
Yeah. If I knew Gvardiol was going to start, I'd go Gvardiol. But I think if we don't get early team news, then you're probably safer with Saliba.
You're safer for sure, yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think you've got the better chance of keeping a clean sheet that game for sure against Wolves. I mean, they've got one of the worst attacks in the league. So, but yeah, I'd probably start Saliba if you don't get early team news.
Yeah, I think you are probably right. Right, last 2 minutes, people. I'm going to answer 2 more questions. By the way, someone just said you've got the best beard in the FPL creator community, so congratulations on that. Certainly better than mine. I had absolutely no chance of growing a beard like that. What was that thing? Danish says Diaby to Madrid. Dean's called it. Yep, absolutely. Mike says Liverpool were dross until the last 10 games. I think we were awful, but 7-0 against Man United. Yeah, but Liverpool are now the most informed team basically in the country, so we can trust pretty much anywhere we pick. Right, I like this question from Amir. He says, where has it gone? With City's next run of fixtures, do you think Wilson, Darwin in, Alvarez out would be best going forward? I mean, this is totally different from anything else I've heard anybody suggesting. So I quite like it as a narrative.
I mean, right now, Wilson and Darwin are starting, but who knows in the next few weeks? I mean, I think Eddie Howe, the last 2 games, he started Wilson in the league game and played Isaac in the Champions League. obviously this week in the EFL, it's got EFL Cup, so you might play Isaac there. But I don't know, I think over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'd probably still prefer Alvarez. I think Darwin could get. All it takes is one bad performance from one of those players, and they're back on the bench because they've got Liverpool got Darwin. Liverpool have got Gakpo there, and Wilson's got Isaac. So, and this season Eddie Howe's not really played them together. It's more of one or the other in the number 9 position. So yeah, I think Alvarez is a much better option than them two.
Yeah, right. Our brains are running on empty. So we've got one more question for the night. Let's see where it comes from. It comes from Stephen. He said, would you go with Visser or Eze this weekend? Brentford go to Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace go to Man United. I mean, just based on that, I'd be tempted to go Visser, but obviously there's no guarantees Man United are keeping Eze at bay, is there?
Yeah, and the thing is, Eze's 90 minutes on penalties. Rissa tends to get subbed early a lot, so I'd probably play Eze in that fixture, to be honest.
Yeah,
because he Palace scoring.
Yep, fair enough. Right, that'll do us for tonight. Make sure you are all following FPL Salah, or FPL No Salah, actually, as he might soon be known as. Thank you for coming on tonight, mate. I've had a great time. Right, if you've just joined us, please do go back and watch from the start. It's been an hour of fun, and Abdul's, I reckon he's probably answered about 57 questions tonight. So if your question wasn't answered, I'd be extremely surprised. We'll be back on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. I'll be in Gianni's chair yet again. He's away all week, but don't worry, the content's going to keep on coming. We've been chasing green arrows. We'll see you again soon.